Okay, so the next thing we're going to be looking at is how I got um, my market value. Well, yeah, my market value. So the weighted debt, I got 28%, and so how I got 28% was what I did was is that I went to the balance sheet. Oh, I think I'm starting with the balance sheet itself. So where I got my information from the balance sheet, all I did was I just downloaded the data from Yahoo Finance through Walmart. And so the important things that I took out that I needed to do my calculations was my long-term debt, which I have right here, my long-term debt, my common stock, my retained earnings, and then I needed my market cap, which I got from up here. Which I got for my market cap. And so these are in thousands. So these are, of course, Walmart is a international company, so they're in billions. So to simplify the numbers, they have it on here in thousands. So what I did was I just transferred that data from here to my project. So my long-term, so you can see more, my long-term was 43 billion, and as you can see the information here. And so for my debt, all I did was that I just transferred the debt here. And so for the equity, what I did was I added my common stock and my retained earnings to get my equity. Okay, and then that's where I got my total. All I did was I just added the debt and the equity to get my total, so that's where I can weight my information. And so we see that once it's weighted, the debt is 35% of the is 35%, and then the equity is 64.85%. And so when we come here to get our weighted cost of capital for the book value, you see that I use the same information. The weighted debt was 35, and then remember the cost of debt from our other sheet, the cost of debt that we already did from this sheet over here. We see that the tax rate is 32.68, and I got that from the CSI market, and so they're 32.68, and there was some, I guess, articles about how they're getting around not getting a higher tax bracket, but so they're at 32.68%. And so the weighted equity is 64, and then the required rate of return, which is from the cost of equity page, that's 2.2%. So the weighted cost of capital is very low. It's actually only 18%, which is really surprising, because I was like, wow, it's very low. But that's going to be good, because when we go to our cash flow estimate, you're going to see how that's going to affect the NPV. All right, so if we keep going down, I did the same thing with market value, but the difference is that I used the long-term debt, but for the equity, I used the market cap. I used the market cap and the retained earnings, and so that's why it gave me a and we can see, we can go up and see the market cap and the retained earnings for the equity, which made a huge difference. So we see that the equity is 71%. Now, of course, this is all estimations. And this is kind of based on what we learned in class. So the market value, which is what people tend to go by, the market, because you can manipulate the books, as you see that they're not too much of a difference. You see that the book value is a little higher. And then we see the market value is just a little tad bit lower by 0.03%, of course, because the book value, of course, will be higher. But so the market says 2.15%. Okay, so let's go to our cash flow estimations. And so on our cash flow estimations, what I did was, these were my results, the NPV and the IRR, but here's how I got it. So in the scenario, it was saying that we have land, building, equipment, that's $150 million. And then we have the shipping, which is $10 million. And then we have the salvage value at the end, what they're going to basically sell it for is $15 million. And then the units sold and the growth rate and all the information, all the inputs are here. Then as we scroll down, they said that it's going to be depreciated on Mac cars. 10-year depreciation, and that's where I got the information from. I got this from the I got this from the IRS, but I got this from a website. They took it from the IRS. Okay, so I'm going to X this out and I'm going to go to, so that was all of my references where I got all of my information from. And so now we're going to break down, making the screen bigger. Now we're going to break down how I got my calculations. Okay, so they already said in the scenario that we have a million unit sales. However, they said we're going to have an increase by 8%. So what I did was I should do the easier way, 1 plus inflation, but in this case I just did 1 plus inflation plus this. So I did it the longer way, but it's okay. So it's expecting an 8% increase each year, so that's what I did, and we see that's plotted. Okay, and then for the sales unit, they said that's going to be inflated by 3% every year. So I did the 1 plus the inflation rate, and then the variable cost as well, 1 plus the inflation rate as well. And then so my sales revenue, which is just my sales minus this is the price of it, $200, and then I sold a million of them. So of course 200 million. Okay, basic math. And for year 0, the NOWC is 12% of the first year's revenue. So it goes basically backwards. Okay, and then the depreciation value is the base of the depreciation while we're using the mic cars is 160 million, which is just the land, building, equipment plus the shipping installation. All right, and so we see that here the first year is 10%, like I showed you on the chart, 10, 18, 14, and then it just goes down from there. And what makes this interesting, this is the one that if you do it in the middle of the year, so it never set a date on when they bought the equipment, so we're just assuming that it's flat dead in the middle, and so that's why they gave like 10%, 18, 14. And so what makes this special is that the last year will cut that in half, so you'll see that in year 11. But yeah, so we see the annual depreciation, which is just saying that it's 10% times 160 million. And so that will leave me with the book value. And so basically we scrolling over, explain all of this. And so we see here, as I was saying, that we're going to put this as a half. And so basically our book value at the end will be 2 million that our equipment and everything is going to be worth. Right, so I'm going to go here and see our calculations that would go to our net cash flow. So we see that this is $200 million, and then we see our variable cost is $150 million, and all of that is just basically up here the 200 times the 1 million, and then how we got the 150 is the 1 million times the 150. Okay. And then we got the depreciation here, which is just basically from the other table above. And then we subtract that. And then we subtract that, of course, by the taxes, which is, we get the EBIT. So that's basically saying that's the earnings before the interest and tax. Then we subtract the taxes, and then we get the NOPAT. And then we're going to add back that depreciation. And so this is the change, which you got from the other chart. This is the change. I'm going to show you. This is the change between the chart I was showing you, the NOWC. This is the change from year 0 to year 1. And so that's what's reflected here. And so we see that the year 1 starting out, basically we have where it's costing us 184 million. And then so now we see that in year 1 we're going to make 33 million. We're going to make year 2 we're going to make 41 million. And then so on and so forth. And then when we add the salvage back at 50 million, adding it back, then it's going to get taxed by 40%. And then we're going to end up having the change in WC is going to be positive. So we're basically adding all of it back. And then we see that it's going to be 187 million at the end of the project at year 11. And so based on the NPV. The NPV is basically saying that the rate is going to be that cost of capital, which is at 2.15. That 2.15, which is really small, and we got that 2.15 from the weighted cost of capital page. Remember, okay, and then we see that we're going to look at the cash flows all the way through, and then we're going to add that to the initial investment, and that gave us a NPV of 424 million, which I thought was very high. But of course, you're making 33 million, 41 million, you're making all of this money and off of your initial 184 million investment. And remember, your cost of capital is just so low, it's only 2%, so it's not really costing much. So and then we have the IRR, which is just basically seeing what is the internal rate of return for these cash flows. So that is my presentation, and that's how I got my numbers. Thank you.